for the woman suspected of allegedly being involved in a gruesome killing on Oahu's North Shore in 2017.
Haley Danduran is the second suspect accused of murdering Thelma Boinville, who was cleaning a vacation home in Pupukea that Danduran and her then boyfriend Stephen Brown allegedly broke into. Danduran is charged with murder. Her attorney says Brown is solely responsible for Boinville's death and that he coerced her to kidnap Boinville's then 8-year-old daughter. But prosecutors argued that Danduran played an active role in the killing, and today former evidence specialists who were with HPD at the time of the incident were called to the stand to describe some of the evidence that was taken, including the blood-stained shorts Brown was wearing that day.
What would cause that kind of staining on the shorts?
If there was any kind of contact with blood-like substance.
So direct contact? Would the shorts have to actually make contact with the blood-like substance? Or?
Yes. Those are 2 paper bags that were placed on her hands. That's the view of plantar side of her hands.
Now, Danduran pleaded not guilty to the charges. Brown's sentencing is for next month. He faces life in prison without parole.